Three, two, one. Hello and welcome to Can't Clip It with Jesse Ralph and Evan Dubois. I'm Jesse Ralph.
I'm Evan Dubois.
And our guest, you can do it. You're
Okay.
friends with him.
Our guest today is the very funny and talented Cedric Newman.
What? What's up, everybody?
I like that Evan hijacked the intro just to give you the most generic intro.
Yeah. He's been on Amazing Race. He's worked with Yuks. He's been touring all over Canada. One of the funniest fellas I know. Better?
That's better.
Yeah, there we go.
What's a weirder day off? Amazing Race Canada or stand-up comedy?
What's a weirder day?
Day off.
Yeah.
A weirder day off. Meaning having a bad day?
No, just like when you're on tour and then you've got like a gap day.
That's a good question. I think it's more Amazing Race Canada because you have adrenaline rushing through your body and you don't know where you're going next. So it's kind of nerve-wracking, right? So
Yeah, you're just kind of sitting there waiting for like a letter or some shit.
yeah, you're always it's like you don't know where you're going next. You don't know what challenges are coming. You don't want to look like a loser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like competing with your son on Amazing Race Canada?
That was one of the best. Like we've done stuff together, but this was one of the best experience. I would never trade this for anything. Yeah, just to be. He's like I call him a mini me, even though he's bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
So, he's smart, and we both balance each other, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I love the idea of you calling him mini-me. And he's literally like 6'5". And
Yeah, he's a big boy. I was Little Spoon in that hotel room every night.
nice.
We were just laughing about something the other day. They give you they let you order food off a menu every night, right?
Yeah.
And we just looked at this one menu. It's either Italian or Chinese. We just ordered everything on each menu. Our bill was like $180. And we're like, we just took a bite of everything. Next night, everybody got a letter. Oh, please only have a $25 to a $30 budget.
Yeah.
So now they know it's us that did that.
That's hilarious. So all of the new seasons of contestants, you can blame that new rule of the price limit on ordering on Cedric and Tashawn.
Yeah, there's a few things that we did that never really came out. The first episode, we weren't allowed to have cable TV, and it was in Montreal. But I used to steal cable as a kid, so I went into the wall panels and rehooked back up the cable. Then we got a knock on the door, so I had to unhook it to tell us that we're allowed to have cable because somebody complained.
Oh, yeah.
They came in to hook it up, and they're like, all of this looks like it's pretty close to being done, actually.
But they're slick. They did it from in the wall. They weren't like, they knew we were too intelligent to just see the cable thing hanging, right? So,
Yeah. That's wild. What's the most memorable part of Amazing Race Canada?
Most memorable part was probably our last when we got eliminated from the race. That was hard because it took everything to go in a certain order for us to get eliminated, and we weren't even last. Because the one thing they say, do not come last. Then all of a sudden there's a double elimination, so technically we weren't last. So, maybe they'll bring us back. Who knows?
Okay. I've never asked you about this specifically. What are your, when it comes to like spirituality and shit like that, would you consider yourself religious or atheist or?
I believe I grew up Christian in a Protestant home, so I do believe in a higher power.
Okay.
Whether you call him God, Buddha, whatever you want to believe in. I believe that there is something. Certain things are just too perfect that I don't believe it's by chance. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
I do believe in a God. I don't know if it's a man, a woman, I don't know what, but there's a higher energy up there, and I totally believe that.
Okay. And I feel like I'm in a similar stance where I believe in something and I don't know what it is, but I feel like part of it is because like being Christian, like you're told like you believe in God or you go to hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I feel like a lot of religions have like a version of that.
Yeah.
And I do it as a safety net. You know?
Just to
Like
be
I'm
safe.
like I believe in something for sure. And then like when I get up there, they're like, "Did you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, something. I don't know."
Well, I read somewhere that when you die, there's something like 7 ounces unaccounted for. So I believe the spirit goes somewhere. So
Yeah.
if you were a good guy, you might come back as a bird. If you're a bad
Yeah.
guy, you're coming back as a cockroach. Keep getting crunched every day. Like,
Yeah.
no!
Yeah. Well, at least the cockroaches will survive the oncoming nuclear apocalypse. You know, the
true. They say
birds
that-
are gonna get dusted.
That's the only thing that survives. That's true.
Yeah.
That and Twinkies.
Yeah. A bunch of cockroaches at a Twinkie factory. That's the future of the planet.
I asked when I was growing up my preacher, like pastor, what purgatory's like, and he said a bus station on a cold day.
Oh, that
Wow.
can be good. No sunlight.
That's fucked up.
I know.
That's dark.
I know. That sounds worse than hell.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
You're like, I'd rather burn forever than feel nothing.
Yeah.
You know? Oh my gosh. Don't take my word on that, God.
Yeah.
Just in case. Just in case.
I have to ask, why did you adopt Evan Dubois
Ah.
as your opener? So many headliners need a ride, and you drive out of your way to pick up a little redheaded child.
Evan, I met him on an amateur night at Yuks just before COVID hit, and I found he was the funniest of all his whole class right there. And I said, yeah, he just, and so he was the one that said, hey, you know, he gave me a business card. I'm like, a business card? And then he asked me, do you do comedy? I go, sometimes. Then he found out that I was, you know, doing comedy, and he came out to one of my shows, which was pretty cool. And then he ended up reaching out to me during COVID, and he was very good at the visual and stuff. I don't know. I just did selfies, you know what I mean? So we kind of complimented each other, so which was good, right? Because he's the young cat coming up, right? So
Yeah.
all you need is experience. That's all it is. You can't run from you can't teach experience. You got to get out to every stage you can, and he works on it and he tries. He even takes a skateboard. You got, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. When you're on a skateboard, you know you want to get funnier.
What Jesse really wanted to ask was, what does he have to do to also be adopted?
Find a black daddy,
Yeah.
a glucose father.
I dated a girl whose friends were like gold diggers, and they'd call guys that didn't have a lot of money Splenda daddies.
Oh wow.
I know.
Splenda, not splendid.
No.
Yeah.
Splendont.
They
Yeah.
should have combined it into Splendaddies.
Yeah.
You know?
That's crazy to me. I feel like there's a lot of them out there now, so who knows?
Inflation's
yeah.
high.
Yeah, it's like this. I didn't understand about this OnlyFans, and people are telling me it's just people going on watching other people. I go, isn't that live porn? Like that makes no sense to me, and I couldn't imagine like being the mother of kids, and you know, then the dad's like, "Well, your mom's going to work," and then the door just closes and a red light goes on underneath.
Under the door? Oh.
That must be a horrible feeling for the dad. Like, well, your mom's going to work.
You just hear the Twitch sub sound through the door,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh no.
If this podcast, aka talk show, does not do well, we
This-
can rent out this space for OnlyFans.
Yes. But this is a talk show. This isn't a podcast. We don't want anyone saying that we're just two guys who started a podcast again. This is a talk show. This is a real thing.
Live. Tuesday
Yeah.
Night Live.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you know what the worst thing too? I was just thinking the other day. Must be the worst feeling for a guy after he does what he does to his blow up doll to clean it out.
Yeah.
I don't even like washing dishes, and now she's just staring at you like. Do I let the air out? Wow.
So if you could open for any comic right now, still alive, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you pick?
100% Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, I would love, because the audience is waiting for him, and I'd love to make them laugh and make me get noticed. You know what I mean? He's top of his game. He's not afraid to say nothing out there, and he's just master, just so confident. You know, there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness, but he just goes right on that edge where he's not cocky. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What's the most memorable gig you've had?
I would probably say Massey Hall, downtown Toronto, 2010. It was New Year's Eve. It was like plus 14 outside. It was with Kathleen McGee. And it was, there was a few of us on the show. and it was just when John Doerr was the headliner, and he just brought somebody from outside onto the stage, and everybody thought it was a part of his act. And it was really kind of strange, but just making 3,000 people laugh. You put a joke out there in a theater, and if you're first like, did I just bomb that joke? But then it's like a wave that goes out and comes back in. So the timing, you just got to know the timing of your jokes and just slow it down. So that was one of the best.
As a fat guy who's jumped into pools before, I understand the wave coming back.
Tsunami. Yeah, it's just the energy was just surreal. It was surreal, and you just on a natural high for like days after, you know. And then you go back into your loo, back to a 4 people show. You gotta enjoy every experience, man. This is a roller coaster what we chose. It's gonna have its ups and its downs, and you just gotta ride the wave, ride the coaster.
So coming up in Canada, obviously you've met like a lot of American touring acts as well.
Yeah.
What would you say the biggest difference between doing what we do here is and doing what we do in the States?
Well, here
other than size, obviously.
yeah. Well, yeah, 30 million compared to 300 million.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones that make it in States actually make it, but there's a lot of people that don't, that are just regular. Where here you could kind of build a name for yourself. You know, it's like Canada's like, yeah, he's a Canadian. You know, nobody really knows. You know, like, oh yeah, he's just a Canadian guy. But it's like if they see you, they'll support you and appreciate you. But in the States, you get on like dry bar comedy, or you get on like like here it's like a Comedy Now, which plays it the same stuff 20 years later, where their stuff is being released like, you know, all the time, right?
Yeah.
So you could once you get there, you've made it. You know what I mean? Russell Peters made a name for himself here, but he had to leave to make a name for himself. Jim Carrey had to leave. Like, if a lot of people had to leave, like, who do we know stayed that made it here? Like,
yeah. What do you think would have to change in Canada to make it so that a career here is as viable as one in the States?
First of all, they need to put more Canadian acts headlining the Just for Laughs. Not just using the American guys to sell
totally
the tickets.
agree with that.
Like, you know, Kevin Hart, we know he sells out. We know he puts a big movie out. We know he sells. But there's supposed to be a certain amount of Canadian representation. But their idea is like, well, if people are seeing him throughout the year for $20, why they're going to pay $80 to $100 to see this person? But why not put us out there and build us up and show what we can showcase? So you show why we're worth $80 to $100 a ticket, right? Because we're going to get the same laughs per minute. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And we could make it relatable. And, you know, a lot of Americans, you know, they do the simple stuff or make American jokes or broken down car jokes, but we could actually make fun of where we are. You know what I mean? And people could relate to that from Newfoundland right to Vancouver. Yeah.
When you first started hitting the road going coast to coast, was there a big change in like going outside of Toronto, outside of Ontario? I know you were raised in Montreal, but
yeah.
Just being able to adapt to every situation.
Yeah, my very first, I was supposed to be Kenny's opener. And Kenny was doing a movie with Chris Rock, right, called Down to Earth. And so Kenny canceled, and Yuks like, hey, can you do an hour? Because on the road, you have to have an hour. Yeah. I'm like, I could do 35. Can you do an hour? I could do 45. Can you do an hour with all the stuff that I don't use? Yeah, I guess I'll do an hour. And then Trent McLennan, who's on This Hour's Got 22 Minutes, was my opener. And we went out there. So when I left with 35, I came back with an hour. Because out west is just so different than out east. And you're going to see stuff that you know what I mean? And you got to make it funny. And then, you know, we're painting a picture. So we're going to paint a picture of stuff we see. You know, I've written some new jokes on the difference between west and east and how they talk. And, you know, Newfoundlanders speak in riddles, but you go out to Vancouver, they speak in codes.
Yeah.
You know, Newfoundlanders, where you at? I come where you to. Where when you go to Vancouver, where you from? Like the interior. The interior of what? Like I live in Ontario, you know? Are you in a relationship? I'm in a romantic friendship. Like, what does this mean? Yeah. So it's just crazy. You just got to know the differences of, and you just make it relatable. That's why one of my strongest things is when I get on, my first 3 jokes are usually about where I am. So people, it could be a 20-year-old in the audience and a 50-year-old, 60-year-old. They could all relate to what I'm saying because I'm talking about their area. And that's kind of one of my biggest strengths.
You're also one of the few comics across the board that's cool on stage. a lot of comics need to like be self-deprecating to get the first laugh, but you can kind of just be cool and make fun of something about the area, and then it works.
Yeah, I kind of call it doing my homework.
Yeah.
And my buddy Chris Quigley's like, how don't you show up at a gig at 5 to 8, get on and find something to talk about? I go, on the way in, I'm looking for stuff. I'm looking for something that everybody can relate to, right?
And I can vouch for that. He'll straight up ask people like at restaurants, like just strangers. He'll be like, so what's like the crack road? Or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then he'll find out like the bad area if he's never been there.
Yeah.
And then like he has lines that work everywhere about the bad area
Yeah.
that he can just flip the name of the town in.
Yeah.
And it works every time.
Yeah. I was just recently in Calgary, and I noticed on the way in, every second car has a cracked windshield.
Yeah.
So I got on stage. I go, how does this place have so many cracked windshields? I was just asking a question. Somebody screams out. They go, it's the gravel and the hail. So I go, okay. And I'm thinking that right away. I go, we have rocks. He said that.
Yeah.
I called you. I said, we have rocks and ice in Toronto, but we wear that on our wrist.
Yeah.
I called Evan up, and he said that's a great line. Like he told me to use that, right? So it's just like boom, it came out at the good time, right? Because that's what I noticed.
Oh, that's amazing. Chris Quigley told me one of my favorite things ever, by the way. He says on the road he'd rather stay at a motel than a hotel because it's less steps to smoke a dart.
Oh wow, that's great. But I disagree with him. Bad things always happen in motels.
And then you're
But
just...
at least you can have a cigarette after, you know?
that is true.
It's your door and then the parking lot. Like, you see the headlights pull up when you're trying to sleep at a motel.
Yeah, but the problem is, when you step out to smoke that dart in room 5, room 4 is out there looking at you. Yeah.
Man, this is our first podcast episode, talk show episode. Edit that out in the edit.
Yeah. Talk show.
Talk show. We are branding it as a talk show. I would like to point out, Evan has 3 pictures of you on the wall and not one of me.
You'll make that wall of fame.
Yeah.
One day.
Maybe there's a wall of shame and a wall of fame. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Said you're in 3 of them along with Wilmot and Ted Morris.
And so the banana room was crazy. He used to do something out the backyard, and it was
Yeah.
different. COVID's changed this whole game, man, and it's made a lot of TikTokers, a lot of people that have. I just finished touring out west, and everybody's got 6 to 8 minutes, but nobody has more than that, and that's all they're working on. And a lot of headliners are freaking dying off, right? So these young cats have to get out there and leave their comfort zone to get better. Right? Because let's be real, I work for Yuks. The average age is 45 to 60, that's going to these shows. So it's going to be hard for a 20-year-old to relate unless they come at the angle of like their parents, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a different time nowadays, and people don't realize this is a marathon, not a race. So you just got to put that time in, right? There's no way around it. It's the only it's the only profession where as you get older you get better. Basketball players get hurt, everybody their body gets tired. Athletes we get better as we get older, right?
Yeah.
So you can't teach experience. And the worst shows when you're up there and you're sweating and you have that little sweat come down the middle of your back, right to your bum crack. You're not doing well. What they call it? SWAS.
Swag.
Sweaty ass.
Nice.
I'll always ask comics how long they bombed for because that seems to be a lot more honest than how much time do you have.
Oh, that's And so what the hardest thing to watch is as an experienced comic. This is what I say. What's worse than no comedy? Bad comedy. And when you see silence up there, like a minute, it feels like 10 minutes, and now it's like you're trying to dig yourself back out, and that's a hard thing. I'd rather follow a hot act than somebody that just bombed.
And we brought that up, Evan and I, speaking about you. So many times, some comics don't want to follow a hot act because they'd rather just be able to go, I'm so much better than who I just followed. Like, this is my show. But there is something to the headliners that have that alpha mentality that I'll bring a killer out to open for me.
I'm the killer.
And then go up and do even better than the hot act that's coming up.
That is so true. That is so true, man. It's such.
Yeah, like if you were bringing this schlub around, do you think how much better would you have gotten, really? You know, I'm kidding. I'm sorry, Jesse.
I don't care.
I
I've
know.
been on a gig with both of you before. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jesse's got a great voice though. He has that movie voice, you know.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jesse.
Yeah. No, I got the red hair, and he has the Eeyore kind of face.
Okay.
You
Not
know?
face, voice, I think.
Both.
I've got sad eyes.
Yeah.
I like how you guys have a red cover and a green cover. They call it the Red Green Show.
Nice.
Red light, green light.
That's Canadian.
Yeah.
I knew that. I'm old enough. I can drink in bars. So, in terms of Canadian comedy, what shows, comedians, or I guess any form of comedy like sketch, whatever, what inspired you the most growing up to want to be a comedian?
I was just thinking about this the other day. I went to see a buddy at the Laugh Shop, who used to be Yuks in Calgary, and on the wall you see like different people that been through there, like the Wayans brothers, and one of the picture that stood out to me was a guy named John Biner. And he had a show called Bizarre. That's where Super Dave Osborne. It's a little bit before your time. It was like a sketch, funny show
wow.
on CBC.
Okay.
And I realized this is where my inspiration came from without knowing that. Same with Benny Hill. You guys he's behind your time, but he's an English comedian, and it was a sketch thing, and he used to just hit the little guy on his head, just little things that just quirky, but you made me laugh. You know what I mean? And then obviously Seinfeld came later, and I watched a lot of sitcoms, but. Same thing. It's stand up in a different form.
Yeah.
Right?
So it seems like you were really attached to like the silly stuff growing up.
Yes. Like, and I looked into Charlie Chaplin after that made me laugh. One of my favorite movies was Three Amigos. That's before your time too, right?
Yeah.
So that was and then obviously coming into your age group would be Mike Myers, right? Austin Powers was genius.
Yeah.
And it's cool to know that he's just from Scarborough. You know what I mean? But he had to leave also.
Yeah. One of my sketch teachers says he came up with the idea for Austin Powers at Second City.
Oh,
And what was it, International Man of Mystery, and he says that Mike Myers took that idea from him because he was working at Second City also.
wow.
Yeah.
John Candy, I met him once. He was genius too, man. And then you got to look at Will Ferrell after. Just his look, just like he just can make you laugh by the silliest things he does. You know what I mean? And they're so good. Like, I grew up with Eddie Murphy, but Eddie took a lot from Richard, right?
Yeah.
So you see the influence from the before your generation. But yeah, I met Chappelle, and he was just totally cool, right? And
Yeah.
I met him before the Chappelle show.
Oh, so
yeah.
before he really blew up, was
Yeah.
that just after Killing Him Softly?
Yeah, he was at Just for Laughs in Montreal, and he goes, "Hey, anybody got any weed?" And back then, weed was illegal, but I still found him. So like, I sold Dave his first joint.
It's 7:45. So you said you wanted to be done by now?
Yeah, you want
Yeah.
one more question? You want to close up? How you want?
Do you have anything burning that you need to get off your chest?
What do you have itching?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let it burn.
I would just like to say thank you.
That was so sincere. He looked me in
Wow.
the eye too. You're
Yeah.
welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It was amazing being part of this. What is it? We call it. It's not a. it's
Man,
not a-
clip it. It's a talk show, not a podcast.
He knows
Yeah.
what it's called. He was just pretending.
Everyone knows what it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah. Welcome
Yeah.
to Sea Talk with Cedric.
Yeah. Wicked. Well,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
Sweet.
much, dude.
Yeah.